Disney tries to sue DeSantis and they get their butts handed to them in court. Tell us about it, Sitch.
Well, yes, it's right. Breaking news. I can see you're very animated.
I am totally pissed about this. How dare they? Disney. Everyone hates Disney.
Well, you should be happy because the judge has just thrown out Disney's lawsuit against DeSantis. Okay. So let me give you a brief history. In case you guys forgot, the CEO of Disney came out against the Parental Rights in Education, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill, and made a comment about how Disney was going to possibly work in the future to trying to get that law repealed.
This is why people hate Disney.
Yes, yes. And so what happened was basically in the 60s, Florida they set up a situation that basically allowed Disney to control the physical region of Orlando that Disney operates under. And because of what Bob Iger said in response to the Parental Rights in Education bill, DeSantis and the Florida legislature said, you know what? Screw you, Disney. We're going to take control of the region away from you. And that's what they did. Okay.
Right.
So
what did they find? Human trafficking there? I'm certain of it. Come on. This is Disney.
They found a lot of duck trafficking and a lot of mouse trafficking. I don't know if they found humans yet. But so basically, Disney in response said, hey, you're doing this in retaliation of our free speech, of our CEO. So we're taking you to court to prevent this from taking place. All right.
Okay.
This has been going on for a while now. And just today on Wednesday, a federal judge has thrown out the case and has dismissed it completely on 2 grounds. All right. The first ground is the more complicated legal jargon of standing, which is kind of interesting. It mirrors a lot of the Trump cases where Trump was, during the election was bringing suit for election fraud, and the courts would throw it out for lack of standing because they'd say, well, he didn't bring the case early enough to prevent the voting or the laws from coming into place. And he didn't bring in the case after he already lost the election. So he was kind of like in a weird limbo situation.
Right.
Well, basically the exact same thing happened to Disney with standing against the governor. And the judge ruled that, no, you don't actually have standing against the governor. That was number one. Number two, on the merits case, and this is where it gets more interesting and maybe a little bit more complicated in terms of the morality of this. Basically, what the judge said was that based on past legal precedent, that it doesn't really matter if the government creates laws that are retaliatory against an individual or against a business on the grounds of free speech, as long as the law they create is a constitutional law. Okay.
So if they retaliate with legislation, as long as that legislation is constitutional, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, like now, to be clear, there's some exceptions, like if they're targeting someone on the basis of like protected class status, like their race or gender or something, then they can't do that.
Well, that would be unconstitutional, right?
Right. But this didn't apply to that because it's just Disney, the company, and it was just broadly on a political speech realm. And so the judge is throwing out completely, saying, no, it's totally fine for DeSantis and for the Florida legislature to essentially target Disney for their free speech and pass a law because the state legislature has the authority to pass this law. So Disney can get effed.
Right. Wow. So, but the narrative was they were getting special perks from the state of Florida. So it wasn't like this was just something everybody gets. These were special perks that the state of Florida granted just to Disney as a company. So instead of like taking away rights that everybody has, they were saying, look, we give you these special perks. We're not going to give you these special perks anymore.
Well, the way it was set up was that, so instead of the government basically managing the area that Disney was at, they said, hey,
like policing and stuff like that, right? Policing,
right, but also like the
waste
board
disposal,
yes,
that kind
everything,
of stuff.
yeah, and the board that makes like rules and regulations for all the land.
They're basically like the Vatican, right? They're
sure
their own thing.
Well, sort of. So they basically said instead of the government controlling that we're going to allow the private landowners to control that, and they'll have their own board, and the amount of members they'll have on the board will be based on the amount of property that the private people own. And so Disney owned the majority of the land in the area, so Disney basically controlled the board essentially.
Right.
And so that's now been done away with. So it's now like a more government thing. So yeah, it was a special perk that was given to Disney. It was given to them in the 60s to basically incentivize them to make Disney World in the first place. Um, but so on one hand, I don't really like the wokeness that Disney's been engaged in, and I don't really care about them losing this element. Though it is interesting because generally it's the Republican Party that's in favor of giving more private control, to these sorts of actions as opposed to the government coming and taking over. But on like the broader legal question, now Disney will obviously appeal this, but I think they'll probably still lose. But on the broader legal question, it doesn't sit well with me that there's this legal idea that you could have the government explicitly say that basically that they're taking a retaliatory action against a company, and that's totally fine as long as whatever the laws they pass is legal. I don't know if I that sits well with me.
Well, do you know what the speech was? They DeSantis passed this parent protection bill, and Disney was against it, but all they did was whine and complain about it.
Yeah, Bob Iger said something about that they were going to try to just get the law repealed going forward.
Right. So they were going to target the law.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And
But I mean,
that's
that could be interpreted as like, they're going to try to raise money to get DeSantis or whoever, out of office, right?
right. Yeah. Okay. So they're going to go after DeSantis for this law. DeSantis says, I'm going to take your special perks away. They sue over the perks. They're saying, look, you can't take our special perks away. And so far the judge is saying, yes, they can.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how do you feel? So again, does it bother you, or does it feel weird to you that the government can take retaliatory action against a company that's utilizing its free speech as long as the retaliatory action is a legal constitutional action in the first place?
Well, do I like that company or do I hate that company?
What? Well, should it be based on
Is
a
that company
universal principle?
Disney? Why are they doing it? Are
Uh-huh.
they doing it because Disney is trying to meddle in parents' rights?
Yes.
Look, I guess the question you're asking is lawfare acceptable?
Well, I'm talking about from a universal perspective. Obviously, you cannot like Disney. I'm not a Disney fan myself. So I'm not even looking at it from that perspective. Disney can get bent. I'm just saying it's a weird precedent to me. And by the way, this precedent, according to the judge when I was reading his opinion, is like this is not just for this case. It's a long-standing precedent that's existed. And I don't know how I feel about that. That seems like uh, a weird function of our law that the government can basically do things to attack specific groups as long as whatever they're doing is as like openly, as long as whatever the laws that they passed is a constitutional law.
I don't like the idea of them being able to target a specific business, even though I don't particularly like Disney, and I think Disney's in the wrong here. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think universally it's not a good thing. It's a strange situation though, because Disney has these kind of perks that they've carved out in the state.
Right.
So it's a bit different. They're saying, we're giving you special treatment. We're gonna deny you that special treatment from here on out because you're not giving us special treatment, right? So it's kind of I see the quid pro quo going on here. But yeah, obviously you can't have the federal government targeting specific individuals or
Or state.
companies. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is happening way too much now. This is it's hard for me to deny Trump is being targeted by a lot of these prosecutors. All these cases seem targeted.
Mm-hmm. This seems kind of like the situation where when you have corrupt forces existing, whether in private or public industries, where it's like the way that they get you is that they know that someone is doing something wrong and they basically just permit you to keep doing something wrong until they have a reason to get rid of you. And then they're like, oh, well, we're not getting rid of you for corrupt reasons. You're the one that's corrupt, right?
Yeah, yes. This is Banana Republic territory, which is awful. Which is awful. Yeah. A lot of these Banana Republics say make sure that all the law enforcement are on the take. So they can arrest them for any reason at any time because they have dirt on them.
Mm-hmm.
This is not necessarily that situation, though. Disney got a sweetheart deal. DeSantis said, I'm gonna take away that sweetheart deal, and they got butthurt and sued.
Yeah. Well, so Disney's obviously going to appeal this. I would predict that Disney would probably still lose, at least reading this opinion, unless there's some other thing that the judge is completely left out in this opinion, which is possible. But so things are not looking good for Disney. It looks like they will lose control of the region that the parks are located in Orlando. And DeSantis will chalk this up to a big, big win. Too bad this didn't come a few weeks earlier, because then maybe he could have used this to, like, not drop out of the race. I don't know if this would have breathed life in his campaign or not. So who knows?
I don't think his campaign was going anywhere, to be honest with you.
Okay. You're probably
It'll be
right.
interesting to see how he does in the Veep stakes.
There you go.
So anything else?
That's it.
Hi, you just listened to a Sitch and Adam recorded video. That's right, we're doing Monday through Friday deep dive recorded videos now. And of course, we're still doing our live streams. Our live streams are on Sunday and Tuesday starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And you can super chat us, or you can join the channel. Subscribe to this channel right here to watch the live show or watch more of our awesome deep dive videos.